I'm so honored today to introduce to you Meg Applegate. She is the founder and CEO of Unsilenced, a nonprofit dedicated to ending institutional child abuse within the troubled teen industry. She's the author of a book titled Becoming Unsilenced: Surviving and Fighting the Troubled Teen Industry. Meg is committed to ending abuse in the troubled teen industry through advocacy, education, and securing justice for survivors. First of all, congratulations for the publishing of your article titled Strategies for Rebuilding Life After Trauma in Authority magazine recently. Troubled teen industry is a new term for me. Would you explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be kind of confusing to understand. So basically, the troubled teen industry is a network of powerful and punitive congregate care facilities that claim to rehabilitate or fix youth who are struggling with anything really between academic challenges all the way to behavioral challenges to mental health challenges. But the sad reality is that a majority of these programs don't do as they advertised, and a majority of the kids coming out of these facilities consider themselves survivors.
Well, that's so unfortunate. What was your introduction to the troubled teen industry?
So my introduction was pretty sudden. I was 15 years old and I was woken up in the middle of the night by two strangers. It was around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and they told me that I'm coming with them and that we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And they told me the hard way involved handcuffs, so I went willingly. They had to watch me get undressed. They forced me to go to the bathroom in front of them, and then they threw me into the back of an SUV and I was off to my first program. I spent 3.5 years in two different facilities where I experienced abuse in both of them.
And I assume they did this with your parents' permission?
Yes, yeah. So that's the sad reality is that, sorry, I forgot to put, let me just put my, there we go. That's the sad reality is a majority or no, all of these kids who are kidnapped in the night are given permission by their parents. And it's sad because these parents are usually thinking that they're doing the right thing. They're being told by these professionals at these facilities and programs that this is the only way to do it. And if you don't do it, something bad is going to happen. They'll run away, they'll get hurt, things like that to make them think they're making the best decision. But in all reality, it was one of the most traumatic things I've ever experienced in my entire life.
It sounds terrifying.
It is. It is. It is.
So, what kind of cell did they give your parents to make your parents? I mean, I assume they loved you, they wanted what was best for you. How in the world were they programmed to believe that this was a good decision?
Well, I mean, first of all, a lot of these programs tout having world-class therapists and trauma experts and things like that. And that automatically makes parents think that they must know better for children, right? So you've got that. And then you have the fear mongering that goes on, them telling you that if you don't do something and quick, your child's going to die and you better get them there really fast. So a transport or kidnapping is the best option. And then you have the deceptive marketing tactics that are used. They show, horses and dogs and everything great on these shiny pamphlets. But in reality, it's a lot of it. And sometimes all of it isn't even happening. If you look at these therapeutic programs, there really isn't more therapy, like actual therapy going on that would be going on in normal community settings. We're talking about an hour a week if you're lucky with your therapist. So it's really not any different. You're just adding in the complexities of living in unregulated facilities for months to years. And many, I mean, I've talked to survivors who have been to 12 programs.
Oh my gosh, it's hard for me even to imagine. I had a son that was in a lot of trouble as a teen, and I'm really glad this wasn't an idea that was presented to me because
Good.
I was very desperate,
Yeah. So you can understand why parents get to that point of I don't know what to do, because that happens to all parents. I'm a parent of 4 kids. There's many times I don't know what to do. Um, but thinking that there's a one size fits all approach for kids who struggle with a huge myriad of different things is wrong, because parenting is different even between kids, let alone with kids who are struggling with different things.
One of my sayings is that every kid needs a different parent.
It's
Every kid
actually
is
true.
different.
It's true.
I'm sure you tried to let your parents know what was going on, or did they allow you any communication?
So communication is often completely monitored and or shut off. And so you're really isolated from the world. Now, the complicated part with these programs, especially in my case, was I was pretty much indoctrinated into this program, and it's what I consider to be a cult, in my opinion. And so one of the things that happened with that was me thinking that this is the best thing for me, and they completely convinced me of it. So really, my parents weren't aware of the things that were going on until my mid 30s, when I woke up to the abuse that happened and decided to tell them. So it was a huge surprise for them.
And what did you identify as abusive about what happened to you?
So first of all, my second program was about 10 girls living in a log cabin in the middle of the woods with their 2 therapists. I shared a bathroom with my therapist. I lived in a bedroom next to my therapist. Really inappropriate relationship dynamics between the therapist and myself. We're talking about wrestling matches, sitting on his lap, those kinds of things. I experienced extreme attack therapy during these circles where you would sit in a circle and you would hear pretty much everything bad that you did that week and horrible things about yourself to really break you down so that they could build you back up in their eyes. Uh, Lots of forced labor. We completely maintained the entire gigantic property. We did all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the chores for hours and hours a day. And on top of that, I experienced a lot of medical neglect. And then in my first program, I saw daily restraints on children, being locked into a room, strapped to a bed, screaming. It was a pretty traumatic, institutionalized setting. And then the second place I went was just very psychologically damaging, beyond that medical neglect that I experienced.
I can't think of any situation where it would be mentally healthy to tear a kid down.
No, never.
So, why didn't your parents believe you when you told them what was going on?
Well, I didn't get a chance to tell them in the program, but when
Okay.
I told them when I was in my 30s, at first it was kind of like, why are you saying that? You know, you've gone this long. Why would you say that about them? But then I told them everything that happened, and they had their own waking up period of realizing that uh everything isn't as it seems, and that they inadvertently made a decision that ended up hurting their daughter, and that was a huge healing process for them to go through. But now I'm lucky. My parents are very close with me. They're my biggest advocates. They help with unsilenced. They really care about ending child abuse within the teen industry, because they unfortunately were victims in this as well.
Then it must have broken their hearts, to hear you share the reality of it. You stated that it took 20 years for you to recognize the abuse you'd suffered during those 3.5 years. Why do you think it took so long?
Because one of the things that they taught me was that I wasn't worthy, right? I wasn't worth much. And it really got beat into me emotionally. And so what it ended up doing is grooming me to be a perfect abuse victim.
Yeah.
That's why I found myself in numerous domestic violence situations, and marrying 2 men that I found to be abusive to me. And so what it did is it brought my self-esteem so low, and it taught me this is what love is. This is what it looks like when people care about you. So when, as soon as someone would start treating me horribly or mistreating me, I'd think, oh my gosh, they like me, because that's what I experienced from my therapists and the people that own the program. I desperately wanted them to love me and accept me. And that was what acceptance and love looked like, and it modeled it for me.
Oh, I'm stunned that in today's world of psychology that this could be called good treatment.
Yeah.
I am stunned.
Especially not led by any outcomes as well. This is not, if you ask these programs for outcomes, you're hard pressed to find some actual data.
Yeah. I love that the process you went through included examining every belief to see if it was really true. Would you share more about that process?
Yeah, I actually, one of the greatest contributors to me waking up was becoming a mom myself. And then I was able to not have that low self-esteem of seeing a situation for what it was. And I put my kids in that position in my brain. So for instance, I had a memory of sitting on my therapist. I'd say, would I want my daughter to sit on a therapist's lap? And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so inappropriate. But when it was in the context of how I feel about myself, it didn't feel inappropriate. And if someone would have said, Meg, that's really weird, I'd be like, you just don't understand. Like, we had a good relationship. But then when I took the narration to be for my daughter, I started to really understand. And at that point, I had to put that new lens on every single thing that happened to me in that 3.5 years to figure out, was this abuse? Was it not?
Yeah, like, would I be a good parent if I screamed at my daughter and told her she was stupid or unworthy oh my gosh, what an amazing lens your child gave you to re-examine everything that happened to you. I am so sorry you went through that. How are you using what you learned about yourself and the troubled teen industry to help others today?
Well, we're doing it in quite a few different ways. We really believe at Unsilenced in giving back to survivors. So we offer free support groups to the community, and we have 4 different ones with different focuses. And then we are really hard at work at delivering resources and guides for survivors once they leave these programs, because we really don't get taught how to reintegrate back into society, because we're very isolated and we end up getting pushed into college or pushed into jobs and being like, I don't know how to function.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And so we really want to develop guides and resources for survivors. And then on top of that, we're really trying to force transparency into this industry. And we do that through our online archive of programs, where we have over 3,500 different programs and 100,000 documents on them to make sure that the information gets into the decision makers' hands and communities to stop kids from being sent to this industry and interrupt that pipeline. And so that's really important. And then we also are working on connecting survivors with attorneys across the country to be able to access justice if they want.
I consider parenting to be the job of gradually preparing a child to be a successful adult. And these programs sound like they did the opposite.
That's very, very true. They definitely did.
Well, I'm so glad that you are not only a survivor, but you had the guts to rethink what you were taught and not pass it on to your children. If anyone who's watching this video today would like to reach Meg Applegate, her website, her email is mapplegate@unsilenced.org. And Applegate is spelled Appel, not like the fruit.
Yes.
Gate. Or you can follow her on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for the courage to heal yourself and for delivering healing resources to, I assume, thousands of others.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. We love doing it and we love giving back to survivors and making sure that they can get back on track.
I appreciate the time you spent with me here today.
Thank
And
you.
it was really eye-opening, and I'm so impressed with what your work is doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're
Bye.
so welcome. Bye-bye.